Hello again. So I've made a Shockwave macro template for Davinci Resolve, and I'll leave the link in the description below in case anyone wants to download it and just use it. You can use it for free for both your personal projects or your commercial projects. Today we're going to be having a quick look at how to use it and how to modify it to get like different versions. So yeah, let's get started. The first thing we're going to do in our edit page is go to the effects library and search for the adjustment clip. And I'm just going to drag it into the timeline. And I'm going to right click, go to new compound clip, and you can name it whatever you want. Just click create, and we're just going to go into the Fusion tab. Wait 1 second. Okay, now in the Fusion tab there's an input and output. We're just going to delete the input, and you're going to take the file that you've downloaded from the description below, and you can save it anywhere in a folder in your computer, and just drag the file into the tab and just link this node to the output node, and now you've got your Shockwave. That's pretty much it, basically. Pretty easy. Now it's gonna take a while to render for the first time, to cache it, but once it's rendered, then it plays pretty smoothly. I wouldn't say it's the most taxing effect, but it is heavier than a lot of my other templates. Of course, you can change the color of the Shockwave to whatever you want. You can click on the node, and in the inspector tab, there'll be you can change the color of the outer ring and the inner one, and also these red speckles. You can change it by changing the glow size. Right now it's red, right? So you can change the red scale. You can reduce the red and maybe increase the green and reduce the glow size a bit, so it's more it doesn't haze everywhere. And yeah, so you can kind of modify the color of the Shockwave to whatever you want, basically. But it just take a while to re-render again, but once it's done rendering, there you go. Yeah, not the best color scheme to be honest. Quite ugly in fact, but you get the idea. Okay, so this is the base Shockwave effect. Now you can modify with other effects to get different variations of the Shockwave. So let's say we might add a waviness node, and this waviness node just creates kind of like a wave, so you can maybe change the scale a bit, make it a bit more subtle, increase the strength to distort it more, and change which phase you want it to be in. Of course, all these can be animated as well to even increase the variation, the speed of the wave. And let's have a quick play. Again, just gonna render it, take a while to render. So you can see now you get different shape of your Shockwave. So if I turn it off, you just get a normal kind of circular wave, and if I turn it on, you just get a distorted wave. And of course you can mess around with the settings. Now another thing you can do is maybe use a mirror node, and oops, sorry, I misclicked there. Add a mirror node and maybe change the mirror placement to a kaleidoscope or something. Now you can see you get different patterns. You can change the X position to see where the reflection is happening, and you can also change the center size to get different patterns. So you can maybe get a triangular one. As you can see, it takes a while to render, and bam. So you can mess around with many different effects. So apart from mirrors and the wave, you can also use maybe a light ray. So you have a light ray when your Shockwave is exploding out. You can have rays coming out as well. So let's add a light ray. And so right now you can see that the light rays is kind of projecting downwards, so I might change the Y position of the light rays to be in the center of our Shockwave. So the light ray is kind of exploding outwards from the center. You can increase the length, maybe reduce the brightness a bit, and if you reduce the soften, you see the sharp kind of edges of the light ray. You might want to increase the softness a bit to make it more hazy. And let's have a quick play. There you go. Now you have an explosion of rays and Shockwaves. And of course you can change the color of the rays as well. Maybe just to go with the color of our Shockwave, we may have a light blue, maybe something like that. Have a quick play. There you go. So now you have more of an explosion. Another effect we might use is maybe the duplicate node. So, I forgot to mention, to get this box of effects, you press shift and then spacebar. You get this box and you can search for different effects. So shift spacebar, and I'll search for duplicate. Just use the normal one, don't use the 3D one. Use the duplicate. And basically what this does is just the name suggests. So it duplicates the, basically our Shockwave, it duplicates it to multiple copies. So we click on it. I might want to make, let's say, 4 copies. And right now you might not be able to see it because basically it's duplicating the original Shockwave, but just placing it on top of the original one. So we might want to move the center point to the right a bit. So now you can see that when we play it, we have 4 copies of the Shockwave. Right now, one thing I might change is the blend mode. So instead of normal, I might change it to screen so it blends together better. Now, if you're not familiar with blending modes, it's basically the same as blend modes in Photoshop or in Premiere Pro. And you might want to search about for a video about blend modes. But basically, there are different way to combine like layers on top of each other, and the screen just basically it kind of brightens up the one below. Basically, that's very oversimplification, but it's something like that. Now the thing is, we don't have to have the copies explode at the same time as the original. We can make it so it explode after. So I might go to the time offset and maybe -3. So the original explode first, and then the copies will, you see, explode afterwards. Now another thing we might change or modify is the angle. So each one that kind of explode afterwards, it's going to turn a little bit, so it's not going to be exactly the same in the exact same orientation. It looks more organic. And of course you can play around with all the different options. For example, the pivot point. So when it rotates, it doesn't just rotates in the middle, it might curve around. So as you can see, now our Shockwave's curving around like this, and you can play around as much as you want. Change the number of copies, change the time offset. You can even change like the scale, so each one subsequent one just becomes smaller. See, something like that. And you can just have a play around to your heart's content basically. Now for the last example, we might go for like a particle explosion. So when your Shockwave explodes, you might want like some particles to explode out with it, right? So I'm just gonna delete the duplicate one, and I'm going to add a P emitter node to emit our particles. And to go with that, we need to use a P render to render it out. And so if I put this on this monitor right here, right now you can see that the particles are kind of spawning in 3D space. We don't want that. We just go to the P render node and change it to 2D. So right now you can see the particle forming in the middle of this circle. So if we go to the P emitter and go to the region tab, we can change it to, let's say, like a rectangle. So now the particle is spawning in the rectangle. But what we want is the particle to spawn wherever there is our Shockwave, right? So we're going to change this to bitmap. And now we have like an input. So we're going to input the region where the particles are going to spawn. So what we need is a bitmap node. And now I'm just going to input, this is our original Shockwave, right? So I'm going to input our original Shockwave into the bitmap. So we look at it here. Now it turns our Shockwave into a bitmap image, basically. So you have like a Shockwave like this. And basically, if we input this bitmap into the P emitter, it's going to tell the emitter to spawn particle wherever there is our Shockwave, or basically where there is like the white areas, right? So if we play it now, we can start to see the particles are spawning wherever there is, wherever our Shockwave is. So right now we might not be able to see it that clearly. So I'm going to change the number of particles to maybe like, let's say 30. So now you can see that it's spawning, see, wherever the Shockwave is. And now right now you might not be able to see it too well, so I'm going to go to the style and change the particle type from point to maybe ngon, and change it to like a pentagon star type shape, and maybe increase the size a bit so you can see it more clearly. Maybe change it to 1 so just you can see it very clearly. There you go. See, now it's spawning. And maybe we can have it so that at the beginning the size is quite large, and then as it's dying, as the particle kind of dies away, it kind of fades away. It becomes smaller and smaller and just fades away. And right now though, if we go to the first tab, you can see that the lifespan of the particle is 100 frames, so that's very long because our Shockwave only lasts, I think, if if I remember correctly, about 8 frames. So we might want our particles to last for, let's say, 12 frames. So once the shockwave disappears, the particle will linger around for just a few frames and then disappear as well. So now if we play it, there you go, you can see that the particle just appears with a shockwave and then just disappears just right after the shockwave disappears. There you go. And of course you can change the color of the particle if you want. But so right now what we have is, this is our particle and this is our original shockwave. So they're happening at the same time. But obviously what we want is to put this particle on top of the shockwave. So what we need is a merge node, shift spacebar, merge. And I'm just going to right click and put our original shockwave as the background and put our particle as the foreground, so on top of the original shockwave. So if we look at this node now, you can see the particle is on top of the shockwave. And for the merge node, I'm going to change the apply mode again to screen, so they just like blend together a bit nicer. And so if we play it, you can see that our particle explodes out with the shockwave. Now we might try changing the color of the particle a bit. So just go to the P emitter and maybe change it to like a light blue, just to fit in with our shockwave, something like that, just as an example. Now on top of that, we might want our particle, instead of just appearing and disappearing, we might want it to like shoot out a bit, right? So we might go to the emitter and change the velocity. So right now it's 0. You might change it so it moves a bit. So right now you can see the particle kind of moves to the right. Obviously we want it to explode in all directions, so we might change the angle variance to 360 degrees. So basically it randomizes the angle, you know, which direction the particle kind of moves around. And on top of that, we might change the velocity variance a bit, so each particle wouldn't have the exact same speed. So we can change it a bit. So some particle will be faster, some will be slower, you know, make it more organic. And we might want to change the size as well. So if we go to the style, we might change the size variance as well. So like some particle will spawn larger, some will be a bit smaller, you know, just random it up a bit. So make it more kind of organic. And of course you can add other effects as well, like a glow to the particle. So I'm just going to add a glow here, and we can, you know, change how much. Okay, I'm just going to put it onto this monitor so we can see it clearer. So the glow size, you know, how far the glow kind of extends out from the particle. And so you can see there's a slight glow to the particle. And this monitor obviously is from the merge node, so it's the particle on top of the wave, the shock wave. So just going to connect everything to the output node. And so this is our final output basically. Okay, so that's how to use and modify the Shockwave macro template that you can download in the description below. Of course, the only limit is your imagination. Oh god, that sounds so cliche, but anyways, you can use all the effects in the example and combine them together if you want. So you can use the particle combined with the duplicate, combined with the light rays, or combine the waviness with the mirror, or you can use it with any other effects within Fusion that's available in Davinci Resolve. So you can maybe have a play around to get like different types of shockwave and effects and kind of patterns and stuff. Yeah, anyway, as I mentioned, you can use it in your personal project or in your commercial projects. Either is fine. So yeah, that's pretty much it for today, and maybe I'll get a chance to see you again sometime, I guess, if I have a chance to make more videos. So bye.